March 18, 1990, Boston. A night heavy with mist, the streets slick with rain. Inside the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, a lone night guard watches the monitors, the hum of fluorescent lights, the faint echo of his own whistling in marble halls. At 1:24 a.m., the buzzer crackles. Two Boston police officers stand outside, red and blue lights pulsing across their uniforms. "Police," one says, "we got a call about a disturbance." There's no alarm, no sign of trouble. But it's Boston, a city where cops don't knock twice. The guard hesitates, then presses the buzzer. The magnetic lock clicks open. Minutes later, duct tape stretches across his mouth. He's handcuffed to a pipe in the basement, eyes wide beneath a strip of silver tape. Upstairs, glass shatters. Frames hit the floor. Somewhere, a masterpiece is being sliced from its stretcher. By sunrise, 13 artworks, Rembrandt, Vermeer, Monet, Degas, and others are gone. $500 million worth of history disappears into the fog. It takes the thieves 81 minutes. The guard survives. The paintings never come back. 35 years later, the empty frames still hang on the walls. Silent memorials to the greatest unsolved art heist in history. And the question that haunts everyone, from FBI agents to art lovers, remains the same. Who really stole them, and where are they now? The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum was never meant to be a museum. It was meant to be a dream. At the turn of the 20th century, Isabella Stewart Gardner, a fiercely independent Boston socialite, spent her fortune building a Venetian palace in the heart of the city. Every brick, every marble column, every painting hung inside was hand-chosen by her. She filled it with treasures from around the world. Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, Vermeer's The Concert, Monet's Chaise Tortoni, and hundreds of other pieces of art, furniture, and manuscripts. When she died in 1924, her will left the museum to the public under one condition: nothing could ever be changed. Not the placement of the art, not the lighting, not even the plants. The museum would remain exactly as she designed it, forever. It was a beautiful idea, but by 1990, it had become a dangerous one. For decades, the Gardner Museum operated like a family home. Quiet, underfunded, and fragile. It had no theft insurance. Its security system was outdated, its guards underpaid, and its policies loose. Only 2 guards worked overnight. The museum wasn't expecting criminals. It was expecting reverence. But outside its ornate gates, Boston in the late 80s and early 90s was a different world. It was a city caught between tradition and corruption, an uneasy truce between law enforcement and organized crime. The name Whitey Bulger ruled South Boston like a shadow. The Patriarcha crime family ran rackets across New England, and both worlds had a reputation for blending into the other. In that city, where even a police badge could mean something different depending on who wore it, 2 men dressed as cops showing up at a museum door wasn't suspicious. It was expected. At 1:24 a.m., the night guard, Rick Abath, a 23-year-old music student, pressed the buzzer and let the 2 officers in. They told him there'd been a disturbance. They said, "You look familiar. There's a warrant for your arrest." He laughed nervously. Moments later, one thief said, "Come out from behind the desk." Abath obeyed. Within seconds, his wrists were cuffed. Then duct tape across his mouth, over his eyes. The other guard, Randy Heaston, was called down from patrol. He too was handcuffed, bound, and blindfolded. They were led into the museum's basement and tied to a network of pipes. The thieves told them, "You'll be released later. Don't move." Then, silence. Just the sound of footsteps echoing through the halls above them. The thieves weren't rushed. They seemed to know exactly what they wanted. From the Dutch room, they cut Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee from its frame, along with A Lady and Gentleman in Black. They took Vermeer's The Concert, one of only 34 known Vermeers in existence. They grabbed a Govert Flink landscape, several Degas sketches, a Chinese bronze goo beaker, and a Napoleonic eagle finial from atop a flagpole. Downstairs, they sliced Manet's Chaise Tortoni from its mount. They ignored other priceless works, Titian's The Rape of Europa, Michelangelo drawings, Botticelli's, untouched. The selection was too specific to be random. At 2:45 a.m., they loaded the art into their hatchback and drove off into the fog. They took the security tape from the night's footage and every printout from the cameras. Only the motion sensor logs remained. The total time inside, 81 minutes. The total haul, $500 million. When the morning guard arrived, he found the museum's front door unlocked. Downstairs, the two night guards sat handcuffed to pipes, shivering. Around them, masterpieces lay missing, the frames hanging empty like scars. The news spread like fire. Boston woke to chaos. Police cruisers, flashing lights, FBI vans outside the museum's gates. Agents photographed broken glass, torn canvas, shards of gilt frame scattered on the floor. Reporters whispered words like "inside job" and "mob hit." The FBI declared it the largest art theft in modern history. Interpol sent alerts to auction houses and galleries worldwide. But art theft isn't like bank robbery. You can't sell a Vermeer on the street. You can only hide it or trade it. And in Boston, there were plenty of people who knew how to make priceless things disappear. When dawn broke, the museum looked like a battlefield. Marble floors littered with splinters of wood and gold, frames still nailed to the walls but stripped bare. The Dutch room, once a sanctuary of beauty, now resembled a crime scene frozen in disbelief. Investigators moved carefully through the galleries, cameras flashing. No broken locks, no shattered doors. The thieves had simply walked in. The guards were alive, duct-taped and shaken, but unharmed. They couldn't describe the men, only that they wore police uniforms, spoke calmly, and seemed to know exactly where to go. The FBI immediately took the lead. But from the start, they faced one infuriating truth. There was no physical evidence, no fingerprints, no footprints, no security footage. The tape from that night had been taken. Only one clue remained: the motion sensor logs. And those logs told a story. Between 1:24 and 2:45 a.m., the sensors tracked deliberate movement, from the Dutch room to the short gallery to the blue room and back again. No wasted time, no wandering. Every step was precise, as if following a map. And then there was one anomaly. Before the thieves even arrived, Rick Abath, the night guard who'd let them in, had made a late-night visit to the Dutch room. He said he was checking a fire alarm. Others wondered if he'd been checking something else. The FBI questioned him repeatedly. He passed a polygraph. They never charged him, but suspicion lingered like dust. Boston in 1990 was ruled by two criminal empires: Whitey Bulger's Irish mob and the Patriarcha crime family. Each controlled its own world of drugs, rackets, and silence. And in both, stolen art was a kind of currency, traded not for money, but for freedom. The FBI began tracing whispers through the city's underbelly. Names surfaced: Bobby Donati, David Houghton, Miles Connor Jr. Connor was already infamous, a rock musician turned art thief who'd robbed museums before. But he was in prison the night of the Gardner heist. Still, he told agents he'd helped plan it, though whether that was true or another con, no one could prove. Then came Donati and Houghton, two low-level mob associates with reputations for disguises and fast jobs. Both were known to pose as cops. Both had ties to the same mob crew that robbed armored cars and jewelry stores across New England. A year after the heist, Donati was found in the trunk of a car, beaten and stabbed to death. Weeks later, Houghton died of natural causes. The theory? They'd pulled off the job, hidden the paintings, and were killed before they could cash in. But if that's true, where did the art go? Years passed. Tips came from everywhere: inmates, drug dealers, even priests. Some claimed the art had been buried in the suburbs. Others said it was shipped to Ireland, traded to the IRA for weapons. One rumor led agents to dig up a Connecticut backyard belonging to mob associate Robert Gentile in 2016. They found nothing. Still, Gentile's name wouldn't go away. He denied knowing anything, but secretly told another inmate he had connections to the paintings. He died in 2021, taking whatever secrets he had with him. The FBI kept chasing ghosts. By 2013, they announced publicly, "We believe we have identified the individuals responsible for the theft. Both are deceased." But they never released the names. The Bureau said the investigation had shifted to recovering the paintings, not punishing the thieves. For the public, the Gardner heist became Boston's favorite legend. Some swore it was the mob. Others insisted it was an inside job. A few believed the paintings were hidden in plain sight, rolled up inside a wall, sealed beneath a false floor, or forgotten in a storage locker somewhere on the docks. In 2015, a grainy security video from the night before the heist resurfaced. It showed Rick Abath letting an unknown visitor into the museum after hours. The FBI called it potentially significant. But again, no conclusion, no proof. 30 years on, every lead collapsed into rumor, every suspect into myth, and the trail, once again, went cold. Today, the Gardner Museum still looks exactly as Isabella intended. Every inch preserved under her will, even the empty frames. But their presence is now a haunting symbol. They hang there as placeholders, waiting for the day the art returns. Visitors fall silent when they see them. Some even tear up. It's not just loss they're seeing, it's absence, the kind that humbles you. The FBI still keeps a $10 million reward on the table. They promise confidentiality to anyone who helps recover the works. Federal prosecutors have said those who voluntarily return the art would not be charged. But 3 decades later, no one has taken that offer. The silence remains unbroken. And maybe that's the most mysterious part of all. The greatest art heist in history left behind not a criminal empire or a trail of bodies, but a void. Time erases many crimes, but not this one. The Isabella Stewart Gardner heist is no longer just a mystery. It's a myth that refuses to die. Every few years, a new theory surfaces, a new suspect emerges, a new journalist swears they've cracked the case. And yet, the outcome is always the same. Nothing. No paintings. No ransom. No closure. The art world calls it the perfect crime. But perfection comes with a price. The price of never being found. Among all the theories, the Patriarca crime family link remains the strongest. Bobby Donati and David Houghton, both mob-connected, are still the FBI's leading suspects. Their crew had the experience, the disguises, the nerve. And their deaths, within months of the heist, seem more than coincidence. Former associates claim Donati hid the painting somewhere safe, possibly in exchange for favors or protection from rivals. Others believe the works were meant as bargaining chips, traded later to cut deals with prosecutors if they were ever caught for other crimes. But no one ever made that trade. The men who could have were either murdered or died before they could speak. Another theory leads across the Atlantic. In the 1990s, whispers reached the FBI that some of the Gardner paintings had been shipped to Ireland and used by the IRA to buy weapons during the Troubles. A rumor even claimed the concert was being kept in a Dublin flat as proof of ownership in criminal negotiations. Agents flew to Europe, chasing shadows through ports, safe houses, and warehouses. They found fake leads, false Vermeers, and forgeries, but never the originals. To this day, no credible evidence ties the IRA to the theft. But in a crime this vast, even fiction feels believable. Some believe the heist wasn't about crime, but possession. The theory goes that a wealthy collector somewhere in the world commissioned the theft, not to sell the paintings, not to ransom them, but simply to own what no one else could. Art historians dismiss it as romantic fantasy, but the idea endures because it feels almost poetic, that the masterpieces still exist, locked in a private room, aging quietly in the dark. Imagine a Vermeer hidden behind a false wall, a Rembrandt lying under linen in a humid basement, brushstrokes that haven't seen light in 35 years. It's haunting and almost believable. Others suggest something more tragic, that the paintings never made it far at all. After the thieves died, their stash may have passed through criminal hands, traded, neglected, forgotten. A rumor in 2003 claimed one canvas had been destroyed when a storage unit in Connecticut was flooded. Another said one was burned to get rid of the evidence. No proof ever surfaced. But as one retired FBI agent once put it, the thing about art theft, it's not like drugs or guns. You can't get rid of it. You either hide it forever or you die with it. Today, in Boston, the heist lives like a ghost story. Taxi drivers still talk about it. Old mobsters drop hints in bars. And every time a warehouse is torn down, someone jokes that maybe the Vermeer's inside. At the museum itself, the story has become a pilgrimage. The empty frames in the Dutch room remain exactly where the stolen art once hung. Not because Isabella Stewart Gardner's will forces them to stay, but because the museum chooses to keep them there, as placeholders for what might someday return. Visitors walk in and fall silent. Some say they can still feel the paintings, the aura of genius left behind. Others cry, not for what was stolen, but for the mystery that still breathes in that room. What makes the Gardner heist unforgettable isn't the money, it's the silence. Every other great theft ends with a transaction, a betrayal, an arrest. This one ends with a question mark, a mystery preserved by time itself. Maybe the art is lost. Maybe it's still hidden, waiting. Or maybe it's long gone, destroyed, erased, surviving only as pigment dust in the dark. But the truth, whatever it is, feels like a painting itself, unfinished, elusive, and priceless. The Gardner heist has become more than a case file. It's the longest-running active art investigation in FBI history. Over the years, dozens of agents have inherited the same evidence boxes, the same photographs, the same unanswered questions. Each generation of investigators believes they'll be the one to solve it. And yet, the same obstacles remain. No ransom, no suspects alive to question, no confirmed sightings of any of the 13 works. The museum receives anonymous letters promising to return the art for the right price. The FBI calls them hoaxes, but the curators always read them twice, because in this story, even lies might carry truth. There's one detail the documentaries rarely dwell on: the two guards, Rick Abath and Randy Heaston. Abath left Boston years ago. He still insists he had nothing to do with the theft. He says he lives with it every day. The guilt, the questions, the way strangers look at him when his name comes up in an article or a podcast. "It ruined my life," he once said quietly. "I loved that museum." Heist spoke even less. He just disappeared into quiet anonymity. Two men who walked into work one night and became fixtures in an unsolved legend. If the thieves had been armed, if things had gone differently, their names might have been engraved on a memorial. Instead, they live in suspicion, halfway between victim and witness. That's the cruel irony of the Gardner heist. Everyone involved became part of the story, even the innocent. The Gardner case endures because it isn't just about stolen art. It's about human nature. It's about greed, about obsession, about the thin line between reverence and possession. Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee was his only seascape, a painting of chaos, of a boat trapped in waves, of disciples fighting to stay alive. He painted himself in that boat, and maybe all these years later, the painting feels prophetic, a reflection of the chaos it would one day cause. Vermeer's The Concert, too, tells its own story of three figures in a private room, lost in their own music, unaware of being watched. A frozen moment of peace before intrusion. Now, that moment itself has been stolen. These works aren't gone. They've become ideas, reminders that beauty, once taken, leaves behind something even more haunting than emptiness. It leaves silence. Boston carries the Gardner heist like a scar. Part pride, part shame, part fascination. It's the city's favorite mystery. Every decade brings a new article, a new documentary, a new theory. Each time, hope flickers. The Gardner Museum remains a place frozen in time, a paradox of stillness and longing. Every visitor walks past the same absence. Every camera captures the same nothingness. And yet, that nothingness is powerful. It has turned loss into legend, silence into spectacle. It reminds us that art isn't defined by where it hangs, but by the way it makes us feel, even when it's gone. Somewhere in the world, 13 masterpieces still exist. Maybe in a hidden vault, maybe behind drywall, maybe in ashes. But their story lives here, in Boston, in a quiet museum guarded by ghosts, where the walls still whisper their names. 13 masterpieces, 81 minutes, 35 years of silence, and still they wait to come home. If you enjoyed this story, hit like and subscribe for more real stories from the digital world. Don't forget to tap the bell icon so you never miss what's next.